Establishing and setting boundaries. This is a really important lesson exercise in this program because boundaries are going to be key for you to be your authentic version of yourself and prioritize yourself enough to make your dream life happen. This is part of what makes a difference between people who take action and people who do not take action. Setting boundaries can be uncomfortable, it can be scary, it can feel unpleasant. It's a foreign thing that we may not be used to doing. And perhaps you're used to doing it in some areas and not all others. But in this module, in this practice, in this program, we are setting boundaries everywhere we need to. We are boundary ninjas, okay? Like just boundaries all over the place. And this is going to allow you to prioritize yourself and to embody your expansion. And here's part of the reason. Oftentimes when I'm meeting one-to-one with clients and they are talking about abundance or they are talking about some dream that they really, really want, their guides will say, you don't have boundaries in place. If we give you all of this money, you'll lose it. You'll give it away to people. You'll use it in ways it's not meant to be used. You're going to let people take advantage of you. If we give you the fame, the stardom, I don't even know, whatever it is that people are wanting, you have no boundaries in place. You'll be exhausted. People will drain you. They'll take advantage of you. So this is so important to the expansion. So when you are in a moment where it feels uncomfortable to set a boundary, remember your actual desires and manifestations and your destiny depend on you learning this. And it gets easier and easier until you don't even think about it. So the first thing to do is understand that boundaries are positive. A lot of people have a negative connotation around boundaries, but they're actually very positive. And so I would just look at, like, when you hear the word boundaries, what do you think? Are you like, ooh, or are you like, oh, okay, boundaries? Like, what is your instant feeling around it? And you might have to reprogram a belief. Boundaries are safe. Boundaries are good. I'm safe to have boundaries. I love having boundaries. I love setting boundaries. When people set boundaries with me, I'm so happy. Like, whatever it is, you might need to reprogram. And then we're going to start to look in and reflect, where are your boundaries leaking energy? Or where are your lack of boundaries leaking energy is probably a better way to say that. So where in your life do you feel resentful, drained, or unappreciated? Those are really clear indicators that you don't have boundaries in place. And I would list out people, situations, patterns, anything where you feel drained, unappreciated, or resentful. And then I want you to look at, what behaviors do you tolerate that do not feel good to your soul? When you say yes out of fear, guilt, or obligation, when do you do that? And where do you tend to abandon yourself, right? Your own needs, just to avoid conflict, to be liked, to feel safe, whatever it is. I want you to dive into this and really look at all of the areas of your life where you feel drained, unappreciated, resentful. You feel like you're making decisions based on avoiding conflict, keeping the peace. You're doing things out of obligation because you just don't want to deal with the conversation of not doing it anymore, whatever it is, and make a list of those. And then let's get clear. Let's start to talk about expectations, right? Because it's not just about setting boundaries, it's about leveling up the expectations of how we are allowing others to treat us. So in relationships, you need to feel what? What are you no longer available for? I want to protect my own energy from XYZ. I feel most respected and empowered when I XYZ. One thing I've been tolerating that I now choose to release is, and go through these journal prompts just to get clear. This is another layer of boundaries. And then I want you to communicate boundaries, okay? So this is the part that I find clients have the hardest time with. I know it was really hard for me, but I'm telling you, once I started doing it and I got through that initial discomfort of setting boundaries, oh, it felt so good that I did it all the time. Now I love setting boundaries. But there's two ways to do this. There is communicating boundaries ahead of time, proactively, and then there's communicating them in the moment. So if you have been showing up in a way that you really need to change. So maybe in your relationships and your family, you've taken care of everything. You've got it. You show up every day, you take care of it all. You make sure that, no one has to do the dishes. No one has to pick up around the house. If anything is needed, you take it on. If anyone's in a bad mood, you do whatever you can to run around and make sure they're happy, or whatever this is. Again, this will be different for everyone here. You might communicate to your family ahead of time and say, hey, I'm doing this work. I'm noticing some areas where I need to reprioritize myself. And I'm now going to be setting some different boundaries, and I'm going to be showing up a little bit differently. I'm telling you now because I don't want you to take offense to this. That's not what this is. This is me just prioritizing myself a little bit more. So I may not be available for your every beck and call. I may not be available to do the dishes every night. I might not start needing your help too. I may, like, whatever this is for you, you can communicate it ahead of time. If this is something maybe you're doing at work, you might say like, I'm no longer available after 6 p.m. I'm no longer, just so you know, I'm going to be signing off tonight at 6 p.m. So if anyone needs anything, I'll check my email in the morning and I'll get back to you then. Versus if they're used to you showing up in a certain way and all of a sudden you stop, it can trigger their own wounding. And now this can turn into a conflict when it doesn't have to. So you decide when you need to communicate ahead of time versus when you just want to work at it in the moment. So that's proactively communicating the shift, right? This is especially helpful if you've been codependent, people pleasing. You're changing the accessibility. And when you do that, you kind of have to retrain people on how to respond to you because they won't be used to it. And chances are you've tried to set a boundary before and it was uncomfortable and you probably didn't stick to it. So they'll push back because they know last time they pushed back, you gave in. But this time you're not giving in. So there's going to be a little bit of a push and pull, a tug here. And it's important to just understand that this is a normal part of the process. You are showing up in a totally different way and people have to adjust and you've got to give people time. And you've got to, I don't know a better way to say this, but you have to retrain people on how they can respond to you now. You might have been the person that everybody could dump their emotions on. You're no longer available for that anymore. And you might have to remind them multiple times. You might have to really set and establish strong boundaries. So I give some examples in the worksheet of that. And then if you're in the moment, setting a boundary can be difficult, but if you are in the moment and feel you feel strong enough to do so, you can just say you can say it a lot of different ways. I'm not comfortable with this request right now. I'd like to take some time to think about it. I want to take time to think about that. That doesn't work for me. I hear you. I understand you, but I have to honor myself in this situation. I understand what you're wanting, but I have to put myself first. And so again, whatever boundary you're setting will sound and look different based on what you're doing, but you can always just pause things and say, let me revisit this with you a little bit later. I don't have a response right now, but I want to take time to think about it. Or it could be as simple as, no, no, that doesn't work for me. I'm not available. Thanks for letting me know. Thanks anyways, whatever it is. You have to kind of decide what your comfort level is and how direct you are. And are you someone who's going to need a beat? Are you going to take a minute when you're in this conversation and say, you know what, I'm going to pause this for a minute. Why don't we come back later tonight? I know I don't want to do that, but I do know I need some time to like gather my thoughts and explain myself. Can we chat about it later? And so allowing yourself the opportunity and the space, you never need to make a decision in the moment. And anyone who's pressuring you to do that is just trying to get you to bend to their own will. So when you're looking at the boundaries, because I know a lot can come up around here, what is the boundary you want to set? What's the fear that comes up? What truth do you need to hold instead of that fear? And then I want you to plan, how can you set that boundary? So if you are people pleasing because you're afraid of abandonment and rejection, right? So I need to set a boundary with my mom, but I'm afraid if I set this boundary, she's going to not talk to me for a few months, or she's going to freak out on me, or whatever the example is, right? What truth do I need to hold? And you can reframe this in any way that feels good to you, that makes you feel safe, but I'm safe to set boundaries. I know everyone may not respond to them right away, but I understand that it's important for my own growth and I'm willing to prioritize myself. I'm also willing to understand that perhaps in the past when I set boundaries, I didn't know how to do it in a way that was highly aligned for everyone. And now I do. I can communicate it ahead of time. And this is the language I can use and the tone of voice that I can use when communicating it in the moment. This is how I can share what I need to express without having to hold it back. And so I want you to practice, whether it's setting it ahead of time, setting it in the moment, whatever, maybe both for you, and practice that and embody that truth. I'm safe to set boundaries. When I did it in the past, I was rejected, but I feel safe setting them going forward. And I know if I set a boundary going forward and I am rejected, that is God's protection, God, source, spirit, universe, that's their protection. It's, redirection. I know if they reject me or I feel abandoned by this situation, they weren't really for me. They only liked the version of me who had no boundaries that served them. This version of me prioritizes me. And then you also have to set some boundaries with yourself. Where do you abandon yourself or override your intuition? When we're not setting boundaries, we're constantly questioning ourselves, which means we start to constantly question our intuition. We brush it off. What boundaries do you need around time, energy, social media, your rest, your habits? So go through and set a boundary practice for yourself. It's all guided in this worksheet, but this is a really important part. And then when managing the discomfort of the boundaries, this can be embarrassment, doubt, grief, shame, guilt, One I hear all the time is that when people set a boundary, they feel mean because they're used to showing up a certain way and taking on everyone's emotions. And then all of a sudden they don't do that. And they're like, oh, I feel like I'm being mean. I'm being a bitch. Like, I don't know what's happening here. And you're not. It's just uncomfortable because you're not taking on their emotions. So I want you to just think when that comes up and you start to feel those emotions, what boundary did you set? Be really specific about it. Not, I told my mom I'm not available, but I set a boundary that said I'm only available for this type of treatment, or I'm only available to give this much of time or energy away. What comes up for you? Is it fear, shame, guilt? Are you feeling mean? And what is that trying to protect you from? Again, what truth do you want to hold? So if you were feeling like you were being mean because you set a boundary, I know I'm not being mean. I know this is just uncomfortable. I know I'm used to taking on other people's emotions, and this discomfort isn't because I'm mean, it's just because I'm not taking on what isn't mine. So you gotta tell yourself the truth in these situations. What are you afraid will happen with setting this boundary? And then what's actually true in the moment? You want to anchor into reality and not fear, because our fear can take us on a whole journey of something that's not even happening yet. And then by going on that journey, we can sit there and end up creating that reality. So then you want to regulate your nervous system. Okay, I put a breathing exercise in this worksheet for you. You can go for a walk, like do whatever it is for you that will kind of regulate you in these moments of discomfort. Then there's an integration here, a couple of questions for you to consider, and then a prayer to God, source, spirit, whoever you are aligned to. And this is to lift the program of fear, shame, guilt, whatever you're feeling. You want to be specific to you around boundary or around setting boundaries in general. And this will start to lift the energy out of your body. You may do this every time you set boundaries. You may do it less and less as you get used to it. You will see and know what you need based on how the energy is moving in your field. But set the boundaries. Do not be scared. Do not bypass this process, because it literally is the key to getting your manifestations of everything that you want.